The Ethiopian leader who won a Nobel Prize for ending one of Africa's longest-running conflicts has for the past month been waging a war of his own making. In early November, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed announced that he had ordered troops to respond to an allegedly deadly attack on a government military base in Ethiopia's Tigray province. Leaders there say the Tigrayan people are being blamed for tensions that surfaced as Abiy implemented reforms and postponed elections due to COVID. Can he heal his divided country, or will the fighting resume? Our title today, Ethiopia's Abiy Ahmed, from Nobel Peace Laureate to Man of War. And here to answer that question are three outstanding guests. It is a great pleasure to welcome them, starting with Prince Asfa-Wossen Asserate. He descends from the family of the Ethiopian emperor. An author and analyst, he also works as an economic consultant on Africa. And he says the military operation of the Ethiopian government in the Tigray region did not target the people of Tigray, but the ruthless TPLF party. And it's great to have Mekonnen Mesghenna with us once again. He is head of migration and diversity at the Heinrich Böll Foundation, and he says the civil war in Ethiopia is just the beginning of a long conflict. And finally, we're honored to have with us Mulu Solomon. She's Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. And she says Ethiopia's current situation is not a civil war, nor an armed conflict. It's a law enforcement operation aimed at restoring the constitutional order of the country. So let me start by asking you, dear Madam Ambassador, there's clearly some disagreement amongst you about the scope of the fighting in Tigray province. You say it was a law enforcement operation, but the fact is Ethiopian generals spoke of being at war. The fighting did last over 3 weeks, and eyewitnesses reported both artillery duels and also shelling of the Tigray capital, Mekelle. So that doesn't really look like law enforcement.
Actually, when you say it's a war or something like that, if it is a different country or different equal level, different people try to fight each other with equal standing. But these are criminals who deliberately attack the national defense forces, which was there for more than 20 years, keeping the country, keeping Mekelle. And these people not only doing this extraordinary, very devastating crime, they have been doing the same for 2 years, but government was very, very patient in trying to solve issues with peace and reconciliation, where they rejected all the requests of coming to table to talk, because they don't want the country to stay unless they lead on the top, because they lead this country for more than 27 years, and their name was still Tigray Liberation Front. We don't know, God knows from whom they are going to liberate Tigray. They have been leading it for 27 years. And now what we are talking about is this is a criminal body. It's not the Tigray people. The Tigray people are suppressed, suffering like any other Ethiopian people. They are Ethiopians. The issue is with this junta, this clique, which they want to dismantle the country with their allies and doing so many criminal acts, including causing killing, planned, financing, designing throughout the country for 2 years. All this was tolerated. Even they deny the presence of the federal government. They deny everything because of when the term is extended according to the law because of COVID, which tests the world. Mm-hmm. And then they say they don't accept the federal government. They make illegal election, which is not legal. And they did all unconstitutional. All this was tolerated. Finally, you know what they did, and do you expect any government to sit down and see when the country is dismantled, the country's sovereignty is become a question, and the country will be dispersed? This is unacceptable.
We want to dig in a little deeper in just a moment about the background of the ethnic tensions in Tigray province. But Mekonnen Mesghenna, what's your response to what we've just heard? Would you also say that this is a law enforcement operation? Your opening statement referred to a long-running conflict ahead.
Well, taking the historical background of the tensions between the central government and the region, I'm now looking rather more into the region and less to the leading force in Tigray. But it was also part of the government in Ethiopia. So taking the historical aspect that from this region went a long-standing war. The Tigray region was fighting 17 years against the central government, which was the military junta of Mengistu Haile Mariam, and which toppled and then came into the power. So I'm very much aware, but also concerned, that this tension between the federal government and the government of Tigray would lead to instability in the region as such, region of Tigray, and also could nurture tensions which has been there for a long time. So not only on the government basis, but also on the ethnical basis. That's what I'm very much afraid of.
And again, I do want to talk about that in a little more depth later, but just on that one point, law enforcement operation or military action?
Well, I would consider it is a military action because the dimension of the military actions taken, it was more than a law enforcement, which I think would have been more a police operation. But this was a more complex and more with more armaments, and even the number of people who were participated in the operation was a massive one.
Prince Asserate, let me get you to weigh in on this, and also tell us a little bit about what you're hearing from friends and family in Ethiopia. If, as your opening statement says, this military operation didn't target the people, why have tens of thousands of people fled the region?
For the simple reason, because they know that if some fighting breaks out in that part of the world, things might happen that would be dangerous for their lives. I think it was a precautionary measure by most of them who fled. As we knew, there were already 20,000 people in the Sudan in the early days of the military operation. But basically, I find it, exactly what we call it, I think, is immaterial. One thing that is true is a very tragic situation that for so many times now that Ethiopians are fighting Ethiopians and Ethiopian blood is being shed. But I think this is not the fault of the central government. It is not only the right, but it is obliged to maintain the territorial integrity and the national sovereignty of the country, and could not allow itself to just sit there while its troops were being massacred in the front of Eritrea, in the province of Tigray. Mm-hmm. So I think as far as who was responsible, we don't need to question it at all. There were many times, many ways, and the central government did really take its time to want to negotiate with them prior to what had happened in the Northern Command. And due to the hubris of the TPLF, they declined. They did not want negotiation with the central government before, and that is why military measures had to be taken.
We just heard Prince Asserate refer to bloodshed, Madam Ambassador. The Prime Minister has said that not a single life was lost. But can we be sure of that? The fact is that there were communications to Tigray province were cut off. There was no internet connection, and independent media have not really been permitted to cover the fighting.
Initially, I will explain what Mekonnen mentioned with what you said. When these people start robbing the country's biggest station of the National Defense Force, and they themselves announce that they have accusation of all the biggest ammunition, and announced that they can destroy the whole country, and including Addis Ababa, Eritrea, what have you. And do you expect the government to sit down while they are having all this ammunition and try to destroy the country and dismantle the country? And we want our country in peace. And obviously, why the people of Tigray fled or others fled to the country, to the neighboring country, is that they know what they have been doing long ago when they were in the jungle. They hide in the society, themselves kill their own people and pretend as if it was done from the other side. Even last time, they manufactured Ethiopian troop uniform, Eritrean troop uniform, and there are people who are wearing it to pretend to deceive the world that as if the government is killing. This is always they do this, and the world knows this. That the people know when they are coming to be is a shield. They want to make a shield. They are people. The people will be affected. Themselves might kill them. They live. That's why they know how in Maikadra they kill the civilians. That's what they are afraid about, and they have to live. Otherwise, it's not because they are against the government. You see now, when the government is ill, they gave all the ammunition they gave them to fight. They give it to the government back. Nobody forced them. They are the one who give information to the government. The Tigrayan people know Ethiopian people, and the Tigrayans have no problem. You'll see they will live together in peace. It's only the elites creating a problem.
Mekonnen, what do we know about the fighting that was going on for the past 4 weeks? As I said, the Prime Minister says there was no blood spilled. Do we know that for sure? Apparently, eyewitnesses have contended that there were deaths.
Well, we have a number of accusations and counter-accusations, and as we all know, in war, the truth is the first casualty. So it's very hard to verify many of the information, and we know that there are different versions. We know that civilians has been harmed so far, and we have heard that the regional group of human rights group in Ethiopia tried to verify the situation and could also find some of the facts that probably TPLF militia may have been involved in that. And but there are also casualties from the Tigray side that the regional government accuse the central government's militia. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be necessarily the government's deeds, but you know, in war situations, militias take their own autonomous measures as well. We have to know that. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is, of course, we have a number of humanitarian crises. We have IDPs, internally displaced persons, around 1 million within the Tigray region. We have something like 44,000 refugees who fled to Sudan, and UNHCR is estimating that if the armed conflict is not going to stop immediately, that maybe up to 200,000 people may flee to Sudan. So we have a clear humanitarian crisis in this region, and we need to immediately settle any conflict.
Again, we will come back to that shortly, but I'd like to take a closer look at the role of the Prime Minister, because in fact, only a year ago, the multilingual Abiy Ahmed, with his mixed Christian-Muslim background, was being compared to Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, seen as the bright hope of a country that has long been torn by ethnic conflict. So how did the Nobel Peace Laureate come to be involved in military conflict?
Pictures from 1998. Tens of thousands of people were killed and hundreds of thousands fled in the territorial dispute between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Abiy Ahmed is also a soldier in this war. When he became prime minister in 2018, the political scientist embarked upon an unprecedented course of reform. He extended his hand to Eritrea for reconciliation and returned territories. Abiy Ahmed liberalized the Ethiopian economy, removed old officials, and met with leaders from partially divided ethnic groups. Abiy Ahmed, celebrated by his followers and internationally hailed as a beacon of hope.
The Nobel Peace Prize for 2019 to Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali.
The tide turned just 1 year later. Abiy Ahmed began a military offensive in Tigray in the northern part of the country. The Tigray, an ethnic minority and an important part of the political elite, feel that they are being ousted by the new head of government, whose family is descended from Ethiopia's two largest ethnic groups, the Amoro and the Amhara. Will Abiy Ahmed continue his course of reform?
It's a pretty abrupt shift, at least that's what it looks like from outside, that the Prime Minister has made. Ambassador, this idea that the Prime Minister represented the bright hope of Ethiopia and Africa, was it inflated expectations on the part of those of us looking from outside?
No, it was perfect. Even today, he is the hope of Africa. And why, unless a person leading a country, unless he keeps his country's integrity and safety, peace and stability, how can he talk of his neighbors and what? He is still working to stabilize and keep the peace and make rule of law in order. Otherwise, if you cannot keep the peace of your own country, how can you be a peace ambassador or peace laureate to work on the others? What the laureate, peace laureateship he received is because he make a peace in Eritrea and also the neighboring countries, but especially for Eritrea. And again today, while his country is facing this challenge, with those junta who want to rule the country, unless I rule the country, let the country be destroyed, how can he sit down and see when Ethiopia is dispersed, Ethiopia is dismantled? It's impossible. And it is his duty as a government, as a leader, to keep the rule of law and to keep the peace, stability, and also sovereignty of the country.
Prince Asserate, would you agree with that assessment, or would you say that he perhaps moved too far too fast with his reform process and thereby helped to set in motion the tensions that erupted in Tigray?
I wouldn't say that at all. He did not move too fast. In some of the things, he moved too slow. There are many Ethiopians who believe that what he did today against the TPLF should have been done 2 years ago when the whole reformist movement started. Because what they have been doing in the past 2 years is to really take care that his reformist agenda did not take place. And they were involved with everything that was there to destabilize Ethiopia. Whether it was the killing and massacring of so many people in the south part of Ethiopia, their hands were in it, or whether it was the dismantling of Ethiopian statutes in London, believe you me, the hand of the TPLF was always there. So I don't think it is a matter of having moved too far. And I think also we can only come unto to rest if the Ethiopian government will very soon declare the TPLF a terrorist organization. Otherwise, things are not going to calm down.
Mekonnen, if you would, give us a little bit of background on these long-running ethnic tensions in Ethiopia, with Tigray, but also elsewhere. And also, why did they explode, particularly after this reform process began?
Well, Ethiopia, the constitution of Ethiopia is a multi-ethnic country, and which has been living in different models. It has been living in a very peaceful manner as a neighboring ethnicity. So the multi-ethnicity is one of its resources, actually, of Ethiopia. And whatever happened, whatever political system was reigning in Ethiopia, the people managed to live peacefully together. But then you have also undemocratic political systems which were using the multi-ethnicity and the regional tensions. There are always tensions when there are more ethnicities, which has been always ignited by different local leaders and so on. And governments has been always trying either to rule by heart, as a military dictatorship of Mengistu Haile Mariam was trying to keep, the whole country, by force. And then he was toppled by the TPLF because the Tigray region was actually also historically marginalized as many other regions. And then they used this marginalization as a political resource to mobilize and topple the government. And that was the second other issue, that the government created a constitution which is based on ethnic federalism. So, and this is one of the sources of conflict, of course, with some exit options, even to secede, if it doesn't work within the federal state. And this was like an exit option for Tigray as well. If it works, it's fine. If it doesn't work, maybe. And this is, I think, what happened as Abiy Ahmed, who was actually the first who came peacefully to power, which is, very positive action, and then with the reforms. But then, he came into a situation where you have some kind of a parallel state. Within the Ethiopian state, there was a Tigray state, which is a kind of parallel situation, and then he had to deal with this very complicated situation. And that is also the historical, I think, dimension we need to look when you deal with differences, with conflicts that you cannot simply solve militarily because of the historical complexity.
Ambassador, Prince Asserate said, if anything, perhaps the Prime Minister should have acted sooner to crush ethnic resentments in Tigray province. In fact, Abiy wanted to govern with a new style, and when he came into office, his motto was Medema, which means something like harmony, as I understand it. Was he perhaps naive? Was the turbulence that we are now seeing to be expected? Should he have perhaps acted more with greater toughness in the beginning?
No. He's not naive. Medema is showing forgiveness. And what he was trying is, it's not like revolutionary to kill or finish those junta who lead the country with abuse of human rights and big corruption, looting the country's money. He said, let us leave apart what they have done wrong. Let us take what they have done good and go forward without any grudge, without any conflict, so that we keep everybody on board. Anything could go in a democratic election. That's why people are against Abiy, because he was too patient, he was too pushing on giving forgiveness, and keep them 2.5 years by trying to convince the people. Regarding the federalism, it's not, Abiy is not saying anything that he knows that it is Ethiopia as a multinational, diverse country. Each and everything that could be managed, whether we take any type of federalism, depends on the discourse of the society, each and every people, each and every region. When they go after this election, what's going to do is how the government go to handle this thing would depend on the discourse of the people, not his decision. But the issue, the fear, if he's against this federalism that Tigray is going there, why did he allow Sidama to be the 10th federal state? He's not against federalism, but we have to choose as a society which is good for the people. But they don't know what they need. They need, unless we lead Ethiopia, unless we rule Ethiopia, Ethiopia shouldn't exist. That's what's happening now.
Prince Asserate, our report that we just saw concluded by asking what will become of the reform process. What is your take on that? Do you think that the Prime Minister can and will return to a course of renewal and democratization? Or might we now be seeing the beginning of a pattern that's all too familiar, where a leader comes into office with big promises and big aims and then gradually moves down toward the road toward dictatorship?
To be honest with you, it would be a great disappointment for me if this would happen. But this is not what I see coming up. For me, the root of all evil is the Ethiopian constitution. A constitution which calls Ethiopia an ethnic federation. Ethnic federation, that means Ethiopia is the only state in the whole world with a system like that. There is no other country in this world with an ethnic federation. And that is what ruined us. Ethiopia became the most racist country in the world. We are the only place in Africa where in our identity cards you have the word race written on it. All our politics until 2 years ago was based upon ethnicity. The parties were ethnic parties, our borders were ethnic. And you know, we have seen in the world where you have ethnic borders, ethnic cleansing is not very far away. And in order to say no to this, but yes to federalism, I'm a great federalist myself, what Ethiopia needs is a democratic federal system where all 120 ethnic groups feel a part of one big country and still believe they are the masters of their fate.
Meanwhile, And unfortunately, we're just about out of time, Mekonnen Mesghenna, but you did say you think the conflict will continue, so I really must ask about the effects on the region as a whole. 40,000 refugees already in the vulnerable country of Sudan. Somalia also right next door, equally vulnerable. Ethiopia used to be viewed as an anchor of stability in Africa. Is that over?
I do not think it's over, but probably the tension is so big that it may also include Eritrea, because Eritrea is directly neighbor of Tigray, and Sudan may be involved in the one or the other way. So I think we are on the verge of this instability if we don't manage to quickly come to a table and then negotiate the differences. So I think militarily cannot be solved. What we can do and what should be done is on the table.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you for being with us here today, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. See you soon.